Welcome, everyone. This is Mike Dotterer, and we're back on the dot. And I'm really excited. Well, I'm always excited, but I'm especially excited to introduce our first guest and only guest for today. And the reason I'm excited is when I was growing up as a little boy, I used to listen to Lindsey Nelson do Notre Dame football. And then I listened to Vin Scully, doing the Dodgers, and Harry Carey doing the Chicago Cubs, Howard Cosell doing whatever he wanted to do, Keith Jackson, the voice of college football, Jack Buck, the St. Louis Cardinal great, Marv Albert, Vern Lundquist, Brent Musburger. Those are names that I remember. Well, this man today, who I'm going to introduce to you, he is in that tradition. He is a sportscaster, and he's recently written a book. And when I saw that Christy Yamaguchi, Bob Costas, Kenny Albert, Andrew Luck, John Smoltz, Jerry Rice, all those people recommended his book. Well, I went to Amazon and I ordered it right away. And the name of the book, you can see right down there, Scott's book, and his name is Scott Reiss. It is an amazing book. And if you want to know about Heidi or Kenny Mayne, Trey Linguo, Scott Van Pelt, and many more tremendous announcers who are, in the limelight today. You should definitely get his book. It's a great book, and I can't wait to read all of it. I've read a few chapters, and I'm working on the book. So, just giving a little background on Scott before I bring him on board. He grew up in Southern California, and I've got about 10 years on him. We went to the same college, university at Stanford. He graduated 10 years after I graduated from high school. He was at Beverly Hills High School when I was down in Orange County at Edison High School in Huntington Beach. He went to Stanford, as I mentioned, and was in a great era when Bill Walsh came back to Stanford, the great football coach. And there was, it's a fun time. And he was, excited about getting into broadcasting, and he got his bachelor's and master's at Stanford Communications and Media. And then he went into the sportscasting broadcasting arena. Scott went to Panama City. He had stops in Utica, Santa Maria, California, which I remember a good friend of mine, Mike Aldretti, played baseball down there. And then he got his dream job, which I remember when I was in college. They just got started, and that's ESPN. He went to Bristol, Connecticut, and he hosted shows like Sports Center, Baseball Tonight, NFL Live, College Game Night, ESPN's College Game Day, all shows that I love watching. And Scott decided to come back to California, where it's where his home is. Got married to a beautiful woman named Jennifer. He has a great family. He started working with Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area, and he got a job working with the San Francisco Giants doing their during the three-year World Series run, which must have been an amazing experience. I hope he talks about that this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. And then he succeeded the great Bob Murphy at Stanford. He became the voice of Stanford football and Stanford basketball, and hopefully he'll touch upon that experience as well. And he's worked as an sports anchor with KTVU, which is a great station in the Bay Area. And he has two beautiful children, Lucas and Cody. And we're not going to be able to go on forever because I think he has to take Lucas or Cody to a baseball game or maybe a doctor's appointment. So with that, I'm going to shut up and let him talk because he talks a lot better than I do. He's a professional. Scott Reiss, welcome. You're on the dot, brother.
Thanks, Dot. Look, I appreciate the intro. It's the first time I've ever been mentioned in the same sentence as Vin Scully and Harry Carey and Jack Buck. So appreciate that. Misplaced as it is. And I will say, minor correction, I did not succeed the great Bob Murphy. I succeeded the great Dave Fleming, who succeeded the great Bob Murphy as voice of Stanford. Can't leave Flem out of the mix.
Yeah, and Flem is. I'm glad you brought up Flem. He's a tremendous announcer. You've worked with so many great people. I mean, you've had an amazing career, Scott, and you've got many years to go.
It's been a good run. every once in a while you kind of stop and you look back and you think about, wow, those years at ESPN, which now seem like so long ago, figuring out what makes great sports television. It made me the broadcaster I think that I am today. Getting to come back to California, and you mentioned Comcast Sportsnet, which was a super 5-year run doing Giants pre and post game and Warriors stuff and 49ers stuff and A's stuff. And then, the Stanford gig, that wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't part of the equation. I'd already moved back to the Bay Area. I was entrenched doing TV, and I thought, that was going to be it for a long, long time. And then my friend Dave Fleming, calls and says, listen, I've got too much going on between ESPN and the Giants. I'm going to have to give up the Stanford gig. Are you interested? And I was like, wow, it's out of left field, but of course, right? I mean, I did KZSU when I was in college. I was broadcasting, Stanford games as a 22-year-old, and to sort of come full circle and get the opportunity to cover my school. And I'm such a passionate Stanford fan and follow the program so closely already that I was like, yeah, I threw my hat in the ring. And even without a ton of play-by-play experience, for some reason they hired me, and here we are 10 years later.
Yeah, it goes by fast when you're having fun, doesn't it? Well,
Yes.
You have been, again, the last, what has it been? You've been at Stanford now doing football and basketball for what,
10 years.
10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And wow, what a run. I mean, probably arguably the greatest run in Stanford football history. And basketball, obviously, is so exciting. We're always trying to get to March Madness. One of the things I have to ask you is the changing, because you've seen sports, for over a quarter of a century. You look at college athletics today. What's going on out there, Scott? What's your thoughts, insight into where we've been with college sports, where we are today, and where do you think it's going?
We could spend 48 hours dissecting that. It's such a loaded question. It saddens me fundamentally to see us getting away from the amateur model of college athletics, which has brought so much joy and excitement to all of us for so many decades. This was probably inevitable, although I don't know how many of us saw it coming this quickly. I think that the initiation of the NIL aspect of college athletics a couple of years ago opened the floodgates so much more quickly than I expected. It's a runaway freight train. Amateurism has all but gone poof. And, we are now seeing, the unavoidable follow the money consequences, with realignment. The bombshell of a couple of weeks ago with UCLA and USC moving to the Big 12 or Big 10, excuse me. And, we are undoubtedly headed toward a state of super conferences. Is it going to be just 2? Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 4? Time will tell. There's so much shuffling, obviously, still to come. I have absolutely no idea where Stanford is going to land. I have no idea where the rest of the Pac-12 schools are going to land. Will the conference exist in 5 years? Will it reload? Will it stand pat? I mean, again, there are a million questions. The range of outcomes is massive. I would say especially for a school like Stanford, but really for everybody. And so I'm trying not to rush to judgment and just sort of take it all in, wait for the next domino to fall and kind of see how it goes. And for me, just focus on the near term, which is, we've got a football season in 6 weeks.
Yes, we do. And I guess we're opening up with Colgate.
Sure. Why not? I hearken back to the Cornell game in 1991, the bicentennial game, which was my junior year. And I remember that game got so ugly and so lopsided that in the fourth quarter, Stanford was penalized for having 2 number 92s on the field at the same time. They couldn't even keep track of which walk-ons had played and which ones hadn't and that sort of thing. So I would expect Colgate to be perhaps the most similar game to that that we've seen in the last 20 years. But I think we all realize, what's to come in the gauntlet that is the still Pac-12, and Notre Dame and BYU and the rest of the schedule. So I'm really anxious to see what this team can be another year removed from the 2020 COVID craziness, full season of normal conditioning, hopefully healthy, because obviously that makes all the difference. And, with certainly on the offensive side of the ball, as much talent as, pretty much almost anybody else, if not anybody else in the conference. So it's going to be real interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes down the pike.
Well, you've seen some great Stanford football teams. And so when you say that offensively we've got talent, and as you know, if we can stay healthy, hopefully we can have an outstanding year. Would love to, get back on track. But it's, as you said, things are changing. I think Stanford and the University of California, both there in the Bay Area, are two universities that have always prided themselves on academic excellence. And, I'm out here on the East Coast. I have a cousin who's an outstanding hockey player. And, he's thinking maybe going to an Ivy League school to play hockey. And then there's these other schools that are, great schools, but they're not as, they don't have the academic tradition. And, that's it's going to be interesting to see where Stanford and University of California, two schools that I'm pretty familiar with, where we'll be in 5 years. And so what you're saying, it's hard to predict. Is that correct?
I'm saying it's impossible to predict. I'm saying there is so much speculation with regard to everybody, and certainly including Stanford and Cal and the other remaining Pac-12 schools, that I take it all with a grain of salt because nobody knows. And I think, at Stanford, there are some really high-level discussions that were already going on with regard to NIL and to what extent, the university is willing to play the game, right? Call it an arms race, whatever. You're going to have to engage to some extent in allowing and even facilitating that for your student athletes if you want to remain competitive in big time major college athletics going forward. There's a lot of schools out there in the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the SEC who are just fine with all of it, who, they'll, hey, we got to get a guy $500,000 to come play left tackle. Let's just get the boosters together and we'll raise the money and it's not that simple, as Dot, with Stanford. And so there are a lot of questions that are out there that already had to be answered even before the USC UCLA bombshell. So I'm guessing there's a lot of sleepless nights, within the athletic department right now, trying to figure out where all this is going.
Well, I have to bring up, because it's an organization that I've become affiliated with. It's called the Players NIL, and they actually have a curriculum, a 5-pillar program, which I wish I had when I was a student athlete at Stanford, which focuses on things that I, frankly, just didn't do a good job of understanding, and that's financial literacy. It's something that a lot of student athletes need to understand, and that's one of the pillars. Compliance, tax issues, how to give back, philanthropy, giving back to the community, how to communicate with the media like yourself, and that's what the players. And I'm flashing it down there, so I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it, but it's exciting to be part of that, because I really think that the NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's amazing. It's moved so fast, Scott, that I was at this hockey tournament with some of the best hockey players here in the Northeast this weekend, and I talked to 5 parents of, these are the top hockey players in the Northeast, and I asked them, I said, do you know what an NIL means? None of them had ever heard of it, and that's hockey.
Wow. Yeah, I'm guessing if you talk to 5 high-level football parents, they would be very much aware of what NIL means. And I think it's great that you're doing that. And, just to be clear, I am not opposed to the concept of NIL and of players reaping some of the financial benefits of the blood, sweat, and tears that they put in. And there's so much money and the, billions of dollars in the TV and everything else. There is a way that it can be done responsibly. There is a way that it can be done philanthropically. There are ways I think that this could be executed in an above board, level playing field fashion. Unfortunately, the early indications are on a NCAA wide level that it is a runaway freight train with guardrails that may exist officially, but don't exist practically. And it's frightening to see, the direction it's going, how quickly it's going. And I personally wish that the NCAA had done this differently. I wish that there was a mechanism in place that would regulate what's going on in a more, I don't want to say rigid manner, but a more equitable manner for all involved. And it just seems like it's the Wild West. And, that's where we're headed. And that's the part that scares me.
Yeah, well, Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations about, the invisible hand and the free market system, it is the Wild West, but, organizations, entities like the Players NIL are emerging and I believe have the integrity. It's not it's really important that, you're dealing with young women, young men who are, their careers are ahead of them. And not everybody's going to be an NBA, going to make it to the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever.
Right.
And, what I'm starting to see, Scott, let's say I was a great chess player. Well, you know what? I need to know about NIL. If I was the young Bobby Fischer of the night of 2022, name, image, and likeness. So it's not just athletes.
No, there are ramifications that are, and we don't even have a grasp yet of what those ramifications are, right? It's the landscape is so immensely different than it was 18 months ago, and 18 months from now, it's going to be so immensely different than it is now. Again, check back, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road, we can have an entirely different conversation, but it's interesting. It is definitely interesting.
Well, I just had an epiphany. Scott Reiss has name, image, and likeness. Could you imagine if Howard Cosell, remember how big his ego was? I guarantee you, Howard would be all over this.
Yeah, but look, announcers have endorsements, right? Those guys, Joe Buck does commercials. Those guys have had that. The difference is obviously you're talking about student athletes, and that's the part. I know that term student athlete means something to you, right? It means something to me, and it is being eroded so universally. Maybe that's too strong, but it's being largely eroded on a national scene because it's no longer about, hey, I get to go and have a great education paid for and have a college experience. It's about, oh, well, how much money can I get if I go play for you? And how much can I get if I go play for you? And that is just so fundamentally not what college athletics are supposed to be about.
Yeah. Well, Scott, you know history. I believe back in the early 50s, the Ivy Leagues, the college football went to another level. And the Ivy Leagues at that time said, we're going to step back.
Yep.
And are we seeing a similar situation right now, perhaps?
Where exactly?
Well, our alma mater, Vanderbilt, Northwestern.
Right. So again, I don't want to come across like I have inside info on Stanford, and I really don't want to speculate too much on what Stanford might or might not do. But like I said, the range of outcomes is massive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly would be crushed if Stanford decided, you know what, we don't like the direction this is going, we're out. And we're going to become an Ivy or a Division III, or, and we're going to have non-scholarship athletics. That would crush me. As someone who is so invested in Stanford athletics, I want to compete. And, more to the point, I believe there is a way to do it. And I alluded to this earlier. There is a way that you can continue to engage in NIL and exist in this atmosphere, but still maintain your own guardrails, right? And do it in an above board way that benefits the student athletes, that benefits the community, that benefits the university. Are you going to be able to do it that way and still compete with, Alabama and Ohio State and the likes? Maybe not. But you could argue that those schools have always had recruiting advantages, that an academic school like Stanford could not compete with. So, there are aspects to a school like Stanford and a school like Vanderbilt and Cal and Northwestern that they can sell a student athlete that these others can't, right? Because to some kids, the degree still means something. And there's still a ton of value to having that. We talk about the 40-year decision, right? Because not every kid's going to go to the NBA and the NFL. So I do believe there is a way that they can do it and thread the needle to maintain competitive and still maintain the integrity that is so critical to the mission, I think, of Stanford and the university and the athletic department.
Yeah. Well, that's what the players NIL is. That's what they're focused on: integrity. Doing it where it's a win-win-win, where the student athlete wins, the university wins, and those that are supporting, the fans. I mean, that's, it is the entertainment industry. People do love to come and watch and cheer for their team. And, when you watch March Madness, I mean, gosh, what are your thoughts about Stanford basketball? When can we get back, Scott?
Man, I'm so pumped at what's going on the last couple of months. I think as a fan, as a team broadcaster, I am thrilled that Harrison Ingram came back for his sophomore year. But even objectively speaking, there is no question in my mind it was the best thing for him. Looking at where his game is now and where it could be a year from now or 2 years from now with more development. So that was obviously a major game changer, season changer for Stanford. And you bring in Mike Jones, the transfer from Davidson, who is a legitimate Pac-12 starter, 42% three-point shooter. It's like getting two massive recruits, right? Who, by the way, aren't freshmen. One's a sophomore with a full year of starting experience, and the other is an upperclassman who's been a starter on an NCAA tournament team and who, oh, by the way, still has 2 years left of eligibility. So the offseason has been a huge success for Stanford, getting those two guys, seeing what Spencer Jones did in the last half dozen games last year, particularly in Vegas in the Pac-12 tournament. You start to think, my God, I mean, if he can be that, he was a 25-point-a-game guy for those last few games. If he could approach, 20 a game, and then you throw in, the Maxime Reynaud, who's dripping with upside. I mean, he's a potential NBA guy at 7 feet who can shoot, who can run the floor. And now he's got another year of strength and conditioning and experience. This is the most exciting roster that Stanford basketball has had in at least 8 years, right? At least since the Sweet 16 team, with Randall and Powell and Anthony Brown and Eustace. So I'm pumped. I'm really excited to see where this thing goes.
Well, you just gave me goosebumps because I can't wait to watch. And I'm on a thread with all these Stanford alums around the country, and they're talking Stanford basketball. So it's exciting. And thank you so much, Scott, for giving us an insight into not only basketball, but a little Stanford football and what you think about the future of this whole name, image, and likeness, NIL, and how it's changing college athletics. Well, one of the things we do and what makes us unique, Scott, and it's easy for you because you do this as a profession. You get the last word, you get to take it out. And, maybe you could talk about your book. As I said, everyone, if you love about sportscasters, if you want to be a sportscaster, if you're a young person out there, this book is amazing because you can it's the sportscasters in their own words talking about how they climb the ladder. So Scott, thank you. You get the last word. Don't hang up because I do want to catch you before you take Cody and Lucas. So again, thank you so much. And I hope to have you back on the dot soon, maybe during the football season.
Yeah, anytime. So first of all, the book, for the small segment of the viewership that might fall into that, interested in sportscasting, it's a must read, right? And I don't say that because I'm the author. I say that because I wish to holy heavens that this had existed when I was starting in the business. So sort of a roadmap of exactly what to expect. This business is brutal. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's unpredictable. And the twists and turns. So to have 15 established professionals who have done it at the highest level share their experiences is gold, right? It's gold if you're interested in that field. For the masses who are just sports fans, you like SportsCenter, you like MLB Network, you are even Fox News now. Kevin Cork is in the book, and he's a former ESPN guy. Scott Van Pelt, Neil Everett, Stan Verrett, Kenny Mayne, Trey Wingo, Jamie Sire, my former Comcast colleague, Dave Fleming, who we talked about, is in the book, right? Representing sort of the play-by-play aspect of the business. Andy Katz has had such a great career from ESPN and Fox and now Big Ten, talking about the print journalism aspect, because they're all similar. There's a lot of similarities. And the idea behind the book is, how did all of these people get their start in this stupid, crazy business, right? It's not about ESPN. It's not about Fox Sports. It's about Kalispell, Montana. It's about Panama City, Florida, right? It's about East Lansing, Michigan. It's about the insanity of small market television or radio or print, what we all had to do in these jobs, which you wouldn't believe some of the stories, how difficult they are to get, how little you get paid to do them, what you have to sacrifice along the way. But the amazing part is, these are such incredibly talented and accomplished people, and they are all inherently great writers, right? They wouldn't be where they are if they weren't great writers. So rather than me try to tell Kenny Mayne's story, Kenny, go, right? Give me a chapter on your formative years. And the result is incredible, right? Van Pelt. I mean, when Scott submitted his chapter to me about how he got his start in the business and Golf Channel and Tiger Woods and everything else, I literally had to, I looked around and I thought, did he just give me this? This is gold. He could write his own autobiography and sell 1 million copies tomorrow. So if you like these guys, you like the personalities, the stories are awesome. And Dot, the timing is good here because the book has been out since November and it's on Kindle. But just in the last literally days, 3 days, the audiobook is now available on Amazon. And the audiobook has almost all of the contributors, 13 out of the 15, narrating their own chapters. So now you get Van Pelt telling his own story, and Kenny telling his own story, and Stan Verrett telling his own story, and Fleming and all these folks. So it's just a whole nother level of authenticity. These guys talking about, you talk about an easy read or an easy listen. It's great. It's snackable. You read a chapter now, you can read another one in a month. They're not interconnected. So I'm really proud of the book. And again, I'm biased, but if you're a sports fan, you're a sports TV fan, it's hard to go wrong with it. It was a ton of fun. It was a great experience for me. And I think for the guys, and they have told me this, it was sort of cathartic, right? To put down on paper things and stories that they've thought about over the years or that they've told to friends. A lot of it is, this is barroom banter, right? I mean, how many times have people asked me, hey, what was it like, working in small town New York or small town Florida and doing TV? And well, let me tell you what it was like. And right. And now it's in the book. So anyway, that's where it's called Where They Were Then, Sportscasters. It's on Amazon. And other than that, I'm really appreciative of the time and the platform. And Dot, it's fun chatting with you. It's always great talking Stanford sports, and I look forward to getting it on again in September.